All right, go ahead and get started. Hi and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our second series, How to Improve Productivity with Remote Access. This is part one, focusing on reducing downtime. So before we start, again, I wanted to let you guys know about the Q&A box we have where you can submit your questions during our session, and we'll be happy to get to those at the very end. And with that, I will now introduce our product manager for IAoT and remote connectivity platforms, Vishal Prakash. Welcome, Vishal.
Thanks, Julianne. Welcome, everyone. Firstly, I hope that all of you are staying safe and healthy given the current health crisis. And hopefully, we can all get over this very quickly. So, as Julianne said, this is the second series of webinar. We had the first series last month, which really focused on sort of the IT OT features that a customer should be looking for in a solution for remote access. In this series of webinars, so this is a series of 3 and they're only 30 minutes long. In this series, what we'll be looking at is more on how remote access can help with things like reducing your downtime or how remote access helps utilities. So we'll be looking more at sort of the features in some end customer use cases. This particular session is how remote connectivity can help reduce your downtime. The next slide. Okay. So today's machines, we all know, are fairly complex and they're part of a larger connected enterprise. And any downtime is likely to have like a snowball effect, which affects not just that machine, but also the entire organization. And remote access is an effective means, and let me make it clear here that it should be one of the strategies deployed to reduce downtime, and especially when it comes to unplanned downtime. So in this session, brief session, we will look at how remote access can help you troubleshoot and perform an effective first incident analysis, thereby positioning you to solve the problems quickly, which fundamentally means you're reducing your downtime. So before we do get started, so for those of you who don't know, very quick introduction on ProSoft. ProSoft has been in business for over 30 years, a global organization with offices just about every single continent, as you can see. We partner with major industrial automation vendors to really become their communications arm. And our strengths after all these years are in two main areas. We really are the first choice when it comes to connecting disparate protocols on the factory floor. So we support over 40 different protocols, legacy and new, so things like Modbus and ASCII, but also many of the newer protocols like IEC 61850 and OPC UA. And we actually support over 120 different combinations between those 40 protocols to help you connect disparate devices on the factory floor. And our other strength is to transport your data wired or wirelessly, safely and securely. So if you think about the strengths that I just mentioned, ProSoft really is your first step in any connectivity journey, or as we call it now, any IIoT journey. Okay, so let's start with what is downtime. Quite simply, downtime is basically the time during which a machine or process, or in some cases, the personnel are out of action. And we're going to be talking more about the machine on the process side. We're not going to be talking about the personnel downtime. And there are two main types of downtime. You've sort of got the scheduled or planned, which is, when you're doing things like changing the machine, you have to do routine maintenance, upgrades. So this is kind of your scheduled or your planned downtime, where typically a lot of planning would go into effect, a lot of scheduling would go in, and you would have processes and procedures and plans in place to ensure that you can minimize the impact of this required activity. So whether it's a maintenance, whether it's changing parts, these are required activities So you would have to want to do it to make sure that there is no, the second type of downtime, which is the unplanned downtime. But it also means that when you are planning and doing things like maintenance, then there is a pretty thorough process and procedure in place to ensure minimal impact. And like I said, the second type of downtime is unplanned. So this is where there could be, as a result of failures, that could be either with the machine or with the process, some emergencies, shutdowns, unplanned shutdowns, because of COVID is a good example, which nobody would have planned for and would have resulted in an unplanned shutdown, impacting a lot of people and a lot of industries. So if you look at and sorry, just before we do that, just quickly before, so remember downtime affects OT readiness, which really is that measure of reliability and availability, where you need to have this effective strategy to reduce that. Like I said, that would include sort of everything within the organization, so the facility, the process, the systems, and the machines, so they can all be planned and deployed efficiently to ensure that minimal impact on downtime. So if we actually look at some of the impacts of downtime, I mean, the most obvious one is the loss of revenue, right? Then this would negatively impact the bottom line. But what about sort of all of these other impacts? And sometimes these impacts actually have a bigger, again, to reuse the word, a bigger impact than simply just a loss of revenue, and can actually pose some long-term issues for a business. For example, if you've got frequent downtime, then think about what can do to your market share. Because if you've got frequent downtime, it means you're not producing product. And if you don't have product available, the customer then cannot buy your product. And especially in today's world where instant gratification is everything, if a customer cannot buy a product from one vendor, one manufacturer, then it's more likely that they would simply go to another vendor rather than saying, oh, well, it's not available. I'm going to come back and check in a week's time. That happens very rarely with today's market and the amount of choice that's out there. Certainly if you think about it, and then from that market share, you think about the reputation, especially if you don't have product available all the time. Again, customers are looking to go somewhere else. And then that could have that snowball effect where even if you do have the product available, let's say a week later, then they're less likely to look at you because they probably within that week, they've either made the decision or they will continue to look somewhere else. You also need to look at the impact on quality and reliability that downtime has, the impact of downtime. Again, this is where it comes, for example, where if you don't have product available all the time, then you've got consumers or you've got other customers that might question the quality and reliability of your product, if you're having lots of different issues. So, like I said, revenue could potentially be a short-term thing that you may be able to bear. But if you look at some of these other impacts, they could actually cause sort of some long-term problems to the stability and the viability of the business itself. So it is something that when you are thinking about downtime and trying to take factors and mitigate the risk of downtime, you want to make sure that you're thinking about all of these different impacts and not just the loss of revenue. What about the cost? So we've looked at the previous slide, we looked at the impacts about the loss of revenue of the other factors, but what about the cost? This is actually about the cost of downtime, where typically the cost of downtime is greater than the loss in revenue. So let's say, for example, you've got a factory that makes a product and you're not able to make it for 2 days. Well, the loss of revenue over those 2 days might only be $100, but the actual cost of fixing the downtime, so putting everything in to fix all of that, all of the machines and everything over that period, would actually sometimes be higher than just that revenue. So the cost of the downtime is typically much higher than simply just revenue, because it does include revenue to a certain extent, but it's more than just that. And this is a very interesting statistic that I found, where they're saying that the average cost of downtime across all businesses, right? So this is different types of businesses they're looking at. That's pretty significant. And if you look at just manufacturing, I mean, they can be from just a few $1,000s through to several thousand. Obviously depending on what product they manufacture, the quantity they manufacture, and so forth. But regardless, this cost is interesting, not because of the size of the number. And certainly, this data is 4 years old. And if you apply the same factors, the same metrics, today's cost of downtime would actually be closer to $600,000 an hour. So the number is big, but the reason the number is big is actually one of the reasons we've already stated and discussed previously, and that's to do with the connectivity today. If you think about today's factories, where it's all about Industry 4.0, it's all about connectivity, that snowball effect that I said, where a simple downtime does not just impact that one specific machine or that one specific area, could have an impact across the entire organization. And that's why this cost of downtime continues to rise, and which can be pretty significant if you take sort of a very holistic approach. So, like I said, if you apply those factors, the 60% from 2014 to 2016, and you apply those same factors, today we are talking a cost that's approximately 600,000, which is pretty significant for any business. So what can be done to reduce the impact of this downtime? And again, there are two types of downtimes, right? There's the planned downtime, and then there's the unplanned downtime. If you take both of those, what can you do to reduce the impact of any downtime? Certainly, the more fundamental things like ensuring right communications, the training, having policies and procedures in place, especially when it comes to sort of unplanned downtime, to reduce that risk, that mitigation, is very, very important. You need to look at things like, for example, given how connected we are, how does IT/OT convergence help reduce downtime? And what are the benefits of this? Does predictive maintenance help, for example? And in order to ensure that the predictive maintenance is actually effective, what systems and processes that you need to put in place to ensure that you have the right data. So there is a significant amount that can be done. It does start with having a strategy in place. It does start with having a plan in place and really, really understanding, which can be very specific to business, about all of the different factors that would impact downtime. Excuse me. So, and an important part of the strategy to reduce this downtime, maintain this IT/OT readiness, which I said earlier, should be remote access. So if you look at what is remote access is basically anytime, anywhere, anyhow. It should really be more about sort of the machine rather than the entire network. And there may be a reason why you'd want to look at network access as well. Clearly IT systems can go down, which is also counted towards downtime, and they would have their own systems in place. They're slightly different because IT is across the entire organization. Excuse me. So they will have to looks at information security, user identity. So a lot more on the business side that IT will need to consider when they're looking at a remote access solution. In this case, we're really talking more about the factory side, the industrial automation side. So here you want a remote access solution that's really more about the machine access. Excuse me. throat's dry, rather than about the network access. And we all know that remote access sort of, does help reduce costs, and it can increase efficiency and productivity. So how can remote access help when dealing with downtime? The very first point I'd like to make is about prompt access to outside expertise. According to the Bureau of Statistics, more than 20% of today's workforce is 65 years or older. So think about that from a, not just an individual factory, but from an overall perspective, where people getting to that retirement age, they may want to move away from the factory, but when they retire, they take all of that knowledge, and especially if somebody's been working in an organization for 20, 30 plus years, they take so much knowledge away with them. Sometimes it's so significantly valuable than just the machine itself. So I think this is where remote access can really, really help getting this prompt access. If you think about the maintenance engineer or the maintenance technician that's been at the business for 30 plus years, he's decided to retire to sunny Florida, and he heads down there. Getting him back into the plan, again, is expensive, is time consuming. It continues to increase your downtime, which, impacts revenue. So there's this overall larger cost. But if you just had remote access, then even though the person is retired, and of course, nothing's for free, so they would charge you service, but at least it would be at a reduced cost where they're able to dial in, where they're able to connect remotely and provide you that expertise, that knowledge that they've gained over the period to help you reduce that downtime. So this prompt access to outside expertise sometimes can be pretty significant when you're trying to deal with the downtime issue. The other one is a first incident report, or FIR. So this is basically where you can be better prepared. Imagine having mobile remote access, so where you can access your machine from a mobile device or a mobile platform, and it could be across any platform, any device. But imagine having that capability. So if you do get a call, let's say from the factory manager or the supervisor saying there is an issue, and let's say if it takes you an hour to get to site, imagine being able to quickly connect and have sort of this first incident analysis, this quick look at the problem. And there are two things that it helps. Firstly, can you actually solve it? Is it something that overlooked, and can you solve this remotely, which saves you and the business a lot of time and effort because you don't have to drive. But also, more importantly, if you look at the problem and say, okay, I understand what the issue is, and then prepare yourself to solve that particular issue, whether it's taking spare parts, whether it's ensuring that you have the latest, software update because it was a known issue. But whatever it is, that ability to do that first incident report and sort of have that quick analysis, and then be better prepared when you do have to go to site to resolve the issue, is significant and extremely valuable. Think about the quick resolution, what it could do. Like I said, potentially the problem being very simple, then you could quickly resolve the issue. Another good benefit of remote access when dealing with downtime is the expanded information flow. The first point where we talked about prompt access to outside technical expertise. Imagine having access to more than one expertise. So if you've got an issue and it's, let's say, you're not sure whether it's just a machine, whether it's a drive, imagine having access to more than one expert or more than one person being able to connect to help you resolve that problem and reduce your downtime. So these are some pretty significant factors that can help you reduce your downtime when you have remote access as a solution. And then finally, the last point in there is about helping reducing the snowball effect due to the connected enterprise, which we already spoke about quite a bit. So what should you look for in a remote access solution? Remember, I said that today it's a very connected enterprise. So you want a solution that's OT friendly and IT secure, because on the OT side, you're concerned about getting the process, the factory up and running. And whether you're making Coke, whether you're making pasta sauce, you want the machines up and running and you want it making product, so you know that does not impact revenue, which means you want a solution. And remember, remote access, right? It's a downtime. If you're having continuous downtime, there are other issues you need to look into. But downtime, when it does happen, should be rare. Um, you'd want a solution to help you fix that that's easy to use, because you don't want to spend a day training and relearning everything about user solution, how did it work the previous time, and so forth. So really the OT's focus should be on how simple it is to use. Is it reliable? Is it always available anytime I want it? And is it agnostic? And that's important, because today devices have got very smart, people have got very smart devices on different platforms. So you really want something that's pretty agnostic that you can use across any platform. And then finally, antidote, I also said that this is a very, very connected world that we're living in, with Industry 4.0 and IIoT, the Industrial Internet of Things, and so forth. So, and remember that if you're connecting remotely, the potential that you could access the network is there. So what IT is looking for is a solution where they can look at all of the security measures. Defense in depth is sort of a multi-layered approach to security, where you could have 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels of security that protects everything from the data through to the connection, through to the device itself, and then more importantly, having a very in-depth and exhaustive audit trail that really tells them the sequence of events, that tells them what's happening. So what you want really is a solution that is both OT friendly and IT secure. Okay, this is my cheat slide. I have one of two, and I promise I won't be long on it. So obviously, having spoken about this, ProSoft Connect is ProSoft's product for industrial remote access. It is cloud native, it is secure with multiple levels, everything from support for Active Directory or single sign-on, through to two-factor authentication, through to role-based user access, IP whitelisting, and the audit trail, and so forth. So a very, very secure solution, remote access solution, to help customers reduce their downtime. I think the biggest thing when you look at the solution is how simple and easy it is to use. And certainly the solution is, trying not to be cheesy, but wait, there's more kind of thing. Here's my second cheat slide. But very much focusing on the solution being OT friendly and IT secure. So from an OT perspective, reliability, scalability, availability, ease of use. From an IT security standpoint, security at multiple levels. Okay. All right. So in summary, downtime can have a significant impact on business. Remote access should only be one of the strategies. It's a very important strategy, but it should be one over all of the other strategies employed to maintain OT readiness, or which is basically the same as reducing your downtime. And the solution on the remote access side, at least, should be a solution that is OT friendly and IT secure. Okay, so like Julianne said, this is a series, this is a 3-part series. We've got 2 more over the next 2 weeks, same time, same day. So Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the next session is about how an always-on network will help utilities, followed by the machine builders' ingenious use of using remote connectivity to improve their productivity. Okay, so clearly ProSoft can help you reduce your downtime. Please do contact your local distributor or your RSM to see how we can help you do that. So with that, I will open up for questions.
Okay, very good. I have a question here. It says, is the remote access solution designed for industrial applications?
Yes. So if you look about our solution, which was OT friendly and IT secure, one of the factors there is the industrialness of the solution. So the product is robust, has got the right certifications, with things like hazardous area approval, but very much a solution that has been designed for industrial remote access, not for consumer-based remote access.
Okay. All right. Another one I have is, with remote access, can my SI change PLC code and HMI screens remotely?
Absolutely, yes. So the entire point of remote access is, and if you look at, let me go back a couple of slides very quickly. Okay, so if you look at this slide, the idea is to ensure that they have the same experiences as if they're sitting in front of the machine. But the idea is that they are able to remotely connect, provided they have the right security clearances. They've been given they've given permission by the end customer. They can connect to that specific automation device, whether it's a PLC or a drive or a HMI, be able to review the code, review the problem, and then fix it if that's where the issue is. Whether it's downloading firmware, whether it's downloading the program, they can certainly do that remotely.
Okay, and along with that, there's another one that says, can I have more than one person connected to the remote access system? Like, for example, a drive specialist and a PLC specialist.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the benefits of ProSoft's remote access solution is concurrent connection, support for concurrent connections. So we do realize and understand that typically these machines, again, they're very complex, they're very connected. So usually there's not one expert. There could be a drives expert, there could be a PLC expert. So we could support multiple connections to a single gateway. So you could have more than one person that's working to help reduce your downtime.
All right. Excellent. If there's any more questions, I don't see any more come in. So with that, thanks everybody so much for joining us on this. Thank you, Vishal, for your expertise, and I guess I'll end it right now.
Thank you very much, Julianne.